Welcome to Every Child Belongs. I'm Kim Botto, an adoptive mom, grandma, and advocate for kids and teens with disabilities, as well as a longtime leader of kids and student ministries. In this show, we explore how we can create spaces where every child feels heard and valued, whether neurodivergent, differently abled, or they've experienced trauma. Every child belongs. We'll hear from educators, parents, professionals, and more, finding practical ideas that help build a compassionate and supportive world for every child. Let's get started. I'm so happy today to have my friend Kayla North on with us. Kayla is the co-founder of One Big Happy Home. She's also the co-host of the Empowered Parent podcast. And through this work, you have become trusted voice for parents, professionals, churches, and educators, helping us create environments where children can heal and thrive. And Kayla, this isn't just your professional work, it's personal too. You've been a foster mom of a whole bunch of kids, and you're a forever mom of 6 kids. You're also a TBRI practitioner and Making Sense of Your Worth facilitator. You and your husband, Ryan, who was also on this podcast, have dedicated your life to helping adults create spaces where kids feel safe, seen, and loved. And Kayla, I have learned so much from you over the years, and I just appreciate your friendship so much. And
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome. And what did I leave out of your intro that you want people to know about you?
I don't know. It's so funny because, you read that and I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I did foster a lot of children. We
You
had about
did.
30 kids in our house over 10 years, and we have 6 forever kids, but we also have a couple of bonus kids that we didn't adopt, but are still really part of our family. And so I'm always like, should I say I have 8 kids? Should I say I have 6 kids? Should I say I have a grandkid? I kind of, sort of, it's funny. So yeah, it's been a journey for sure. One that it was never part of my plan, but clearly part of God's plan. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess we had just, I was going to be a teacher. We were going to have a few kids, that was just, Ryan was, funny enough, was going to be a banker. I think that was kind of where he
That's
was
a
looking at
riot.
jobs. I know, I
That's a
laugh now because I'm
riot.
like,
No
he
way.
he was looking at jobs at banks. He had his education was in, finance and business, and so he thought, banking was for him. And it's so funny now looking back on that. And I was a teacher. I taught 3rd grade for 11 years, and I've homeschooled my kids and taught in some of the co-ops that they've been in and stuff. But um our passion, when we started fostering, we just realized the need for people to understand trauma and how it impacts kids and families and how to better really just
Mm-hmm.
care for those kids in our families. And it was a learning. We learned along the way how to best care for kids, and then thought, well, we might as well share this with other
Mm-hmm.
people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how we ended up where we are.
Right. And you're very vulnerable in sharing your story. And also, so
Yeah.
you've got kids who came to you, obviously have had hard backgrounds. You also have kids who are not typical in their development. So you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we have, because we've adopted, so 4 of our 6 kids we've adopted, and we have a couple of kids who struggle with fetal alcohol, lots of prenatal exposure to drugs and alcohol. We have one child who was born as a micropreemie. She was 23 weeks when she was born.
Mm.
And has had some struggles along the way. As as a result of that, we did many, many years of therapy to get her to where she is now, and she's thriving and doing great. And then we have one daughter who, she's a teenager, but she's kind of our perpetual toddler. So she
Mm-hmm.
is, like a two-year old, not quite a 2-year old. Has just maybe a handful of words, probably 10 total words that she can say. She's learning to use a communication device because she really understands more than she can communicate. So she's working on getting, using her communication device. And, but, she's still in diapers and probably always will be. And so, yeah, so she's been definitely a whole nother ball game of, parenting kids with
Right.
some challenges.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I want to point that out. Yeah. Thank you. And I've gotten to meet a couple of your kids, and they are
Yeah.
fun and they are real. And watching y'all parent in the moment is hysterically funny, and I learned from it
They're a
too.
lot of fun.
That's right. Well,
Mm,
when people look at your family does not look typical. So,
Correct.
what do you think are some assumptions that people make about your family or your family life that just aren't true?
Oh, that just aren't true? I don't know. I think people probably do make a lot of assumptions about our family. They probably think, oh my gosh, it's crazy all the time at your house. There's never any calm, but actually, our house is a fairly calm place. And we've got a lot of things going on for sure, but I think having a kiddo with some pretty severe special needs, people think that that's harder than it is. Honestly, she's probably one of the easier kids in the house.
Mhm.
When I take her to the dentist, they're always like, "Oh, her teeth are so nice." And I'm like, "Well, that's because I control everything that goes into her mouth." Like, she's not like a typical teenager that's getting, sodas every time she goes to a friend's house or whatever. And so there's a lot of things that are a little easier with her because I manage all the aspects of her life. But in
Mhm.
the same regard, there's a lot of things that are harder. Like we can't just go to a friend's house with her because she's not safe in just anybody's house. So she has to
Mhm.
have 24-hour supervision. She has to have, she has no safety awareness. And so, just like I think it was last weekend, we were getting ready for church and somebody had gotten her dressed, somebody in our house had gotten her dressed, and out of the corner of my eye, I notice our front door is opening, and she has opened the front door and is going out the front door by herself, and she is definitely would just run right into traffic. And so I was like, "Oh, no, somebody," because we have, like, a strap that we can help, buckle her into her chair whenever, we need her to sit there for a few minutes or whatever, and so I was like, "Somebody forgot the seat belts on that chair," because she was just dodging out the front door. So, those kinds of things, I think most people don't think about, the extent of that. Or so a couple years ago, we went on a road trip and, we realized we'd always used the back of our 15-passenger van as kind of our changing table. And since, that's not something that's accessible at most places, and we realized
Mm.
we're on this road trip, our van is fully packed and we're needing to stop
Oh.
along the way. So we got
Oh.
real creative in how we could, change the diaper along the way. So I think there's just so many things that people don't think about when you're
Right.
raising a child with special needs that just impact your day to day, that impact just how you function as a family. So well, I think people probably make a lot of assumptions about our family. I think they probably just really don't even know and don't
Of
understand
course. Of
so much of
course.
what we go through.
Of
Yeah.
course. Even you talking about, developmentally, she's less than a 2-year-old,
Yeah.
but her mobility is much better than a 2-year-old.
Correct.
So her running into traffic is a very real danger that we
Correct.
don't think about.
Yep.
So both of us are raising kids who aren't typical.
Yep.
And I know you are really good at helping build empathy in kids. And we want our children to have friends and we want them to thrive and to be
Yeah.
who God created them to be.
Yep.
But because of their differences and their backgrounds, friends are hard.
They are.
So, how do we build empathy in the kids around them so that they can find their place in their people?
Yeah, I think helping other kids. So we kind of started, talking about building empathy for other people for them.
Mhm.
I think we started doing that a lot. We have a couple of biological daughters in our mix and also our family members. And so trying to help educate them in a way that's respectful of our kids' story.
Mhm.
Um, being able to help them understand why your sibling struggles with this, or why your grandchild or your niece or whatever struggles with certain things, just by giving them parts of their story and helping them understand how those things are impacted. But I think helping our kids, so my kids that are not neurotypical, one of the things that they struggle with a lot of times is they're not developmentally the same age as their peers.
Right.
And so they seem, there's that little bit of a dismaturity that's happening. And so they don't understand why their peers think that the things they do are strange or out of the ordinary or a little immature. And so helping our kids as well recognize, things like facial expressions, and when people make that face, maybe they're not liking what you're saying or what you're doing, or maybe they're thinking that that's not okay, and so helping them kind of understand cues that other people will give them and helping them understand, how to have compassion for other people around them as well when other people maybe say things or do things that aren't kind, because kids say things that are
Right.
just rude and mean
Right.
sometimes, and it can be real easy for them to get their feelings hurt, and so we always try and just kinda put that back and say, "I wonder what their day was like. I wonder what their home life is like. I wonder why they needed to say that to you. Was it to make themselves feel better? What was going on?" So, I think it's kind of a two-way street when it comes to that empathy, like helping others understand our kids and their struggles and why things need to be a little different for them sometimes, but also helping our kids understand other people and their reactions. We've had to do kind of both of those.
Well, it's interesting that you say, I mean, I love the change starts in us. So you're
Yeah.
looking at your kids who are not neurotypical. Do you think we give up too easily on them? Because a lot of people say, well, they're just not going to pick up on social cues, or they're just not going to understand that. And it sounds like you're not accepting that.
No, I think we can hold them to a higher standard, but we have to teach them. We can't just hold them to a higher standard and not give them the tools that they need and the things that they need to be able to be successful. I think we can teach social skills. We can teach, our kids how to interact in certain situations. We have one who never been diagnosed on the autism spectrum, but definitely has as she's gotten older. She actually came to me and said, "Do you think I'm on the spectrum?" She had a few people ask her that.
Oh.
And she was like, "Do you think I am?" She said, "I've been doing a little research and I think I might be," and kind of started
Mm-hmm.
asking this question. So she has taken it upon herself as, she's gotten older, she's taken it upon herself to say, "What do I need to understand about other people so that I can fit in?" And so she's actually come to us and said, how can I do better in this situation? Because I realize that I'm a little abrupt or I'm a little blunt with people and I don't want to be that way. And so, yeah, so she's held herself to a higher standard and just recognized the shortcomings that she has and recognized the places where maybe she's not fitting in because of brain development and things that have gone on
Right.
in her, in her own brain, but wanting to be able to have those friends. And we've seen her start to blossom into some beautiful friendships that was a result of her really being willing to say, okay, I want to learn something more. I want to do something different. I want to have those friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of our kids, we've said, we understand that this is a struggle, but we want to help you be the best version of you. We want to help you be who God created you to be. And that's going to mean that you might have to do something a little different, or you might have to learn a skill you don't want to learn, that seems like, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's silly. Why do I have to learn that? And so I do think we give up on kids and we just kind of relegate them to, well, this is just these are their struggles, and we've been guilty of that too. I was talking to my daughter, my special needs daughter. I was talking to her teacher, so she goes to school full time, and she's in like an inclusion. It's a self-contained class for life skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she's in high school, and I was talking to her teacher, and her teacher said something to me, and I'm trying to remember what it was that she was like, "Oh, we have her do such and such," and I said, "Wait, you do? I guess we never even thought about that. Like, we just do it for her." And she's like, "No, she's totally capable of doing that." And I was like, I hadn't even because I think I had become guilty of thinking like, "Oh, well, this is just where she's at. I'm just gonna forever have to do that for her." And her teacher was like, "Oh, no, she does that by herself at school." And I was like, "All right, well, she's doing it by herself at home too." I hadn't even
Uh-huh.
thought to include her in whatever. I can't remember. I'm trying to think what it was, but I know things like clearing dishes off the table at mealtime and stuff. I hadn't really thought about that, and we just take her stuff to the sink for her, but she's capable of holding her dishes. She's capable of walking into the kitchen. Why wouldn't I require her
Why
to
wouldn't I?
do that?
Yeah, I think
So,
so often we do. And I even as you're talking, I'm thinking about this was going around social media. I probably reposted it where it talks about kids who are autistic spend so much time trying to figure out the world and how to fit in.
yep,
We should be spending more
yep,
time. And I think we should be spending more time, but that doesn't mean that a person who is neurodivergent shouldn't also be learning about
right.
how we do interact And, oh,
Yeah.
that face means they're really bored. I need to ask them a question and get them to start talking.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that we can, as, people that are surrounded by neurodivergent kids and people, that we have to do our part to recognize, oh, I think something's a little different here and I'm going to be sensitive to that. But for sure, we've got to help our kids figure out how to fit in. We have a nephew who is on the autism spectrum, and for the longest time he struggled with, he would go to somebody's house and he would, you'd serve something, like, he'd come over to our house and I'd have pizza, but it wasn't the I hadn't
Oh,
ordered pizza from his favorite pizza place, right?
right.
And so he'd be like, "That's disgusting, I'm not gonna eat that." And so I would just say to him, I was like, "Hey, when someone offers you food that you don't like and it's not your preference, you don't say it's disgusting, but instead maybe say, okay, this is the pizza that we've got." And you can say, no, thank you. Or you can say, and we just kind of had those conversations over time of, how do you politely say, I don't like, you don't have to eat it. It doesn't, I'm not forcing you to eat it, but you can say things that are different than, that's disgusting. Like,
Mhm.
that could hurt somebody's feelings. And so helping somebody who maybe, I mean, he's just very blunt like that. That's just, this is, I like Pizza Hut. This isn't Pizza Hut, so this is disgusting. And I'm like, "Yeah, I understand. So, but let's figure out a different way to say that." And so over time, he's gotten to the place where he actually will try things when he comes over to my house, and has learned to like new things because we have held him to a higher standard and said, "Hey,
Mhm.
that's not how we talk to people. That's not what we say. Hey, at the table we take off our hat." And at first he was really offended, like, that we would make him take off his cowboy hat. But we just talked to him in a polite way of showing him, like, "Hey, this is how we're polite when we're out to a meal. This is the standard." And so he was able to rise to that standard very easily.
Of course, so often they are allowed so often they can rise to it if we will just give them a little bit of help.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we continue this conversation, I want to let you know my new book, Boundless Hope, is available now. If you're looking for more resources, strategies, and encouragement to assure every child feels like they belong, this book is for you. Visit kimbotto.com or Amazon to order your copy today. How does this play out? Like we're talking about in the home, how does this play out in a group setting, like at a church? How do we help
Mhm.
kids be friends with kids who are different?
It's the education piece of it. It's sometimes people, what we've always told our kids is, sometimes people's brains work differently than ours. And so they don't quite understand, when we were talking about, like, with our nephew and our kids trying to understand why he has a favorite person at all times. And so his favorite person changes. And if you're not his favorite person, he basically doesn't talk to you, right? And so our kids, he would change with which one of our kids was his favorite person, and then the person that used to be the favorite would not like that, and they would be like, "Wait, I thought he wanted to do stuff with me?" And so we talked to him about, sometimes when their brains work differently, we have to understand that they're not able to really interact with more than one person at a time. And so we talk about that, and we've done that in a church setting when we've had our kids interacting with other kids, whether it be our more neurotypical kids, and they're like, "Man, this one kid in my class is driving me crazy in Sunday school. They keep doing this, this, and this." We've been able to talk to them about what might be going on and why they might be doing that, and kind of just educating them. I think it's helpful for our kids because they do have siblings
Sure,
that are
sure.
neurodivergent, and so I think our kids are a lot more empathetic towards other kids when we go into churches, and I've actually seen them start to educate other kids and be like, "Well, my sister really struggles with this, and so you have to be, patient with her in this area," or, "My brother needs a little more support here," or, "His brain doesn't work just exactly like ours does." And so I've watched my kids start to educate their peers a little bit about some of the challenges that they might see. So,
Mhm. So maybe that's the answer. Get the siblings to educate. Actually, though, it's
yeah,
not the
yeah.
answer because I had a one of my granddaughters is in class with her autistic cousin, and a couple weeks
Mm,
ago, she was super frustrated, and she said, "I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain to everybody, I need help. Why won't the
Yeah.
adults help explain?" So, if you're an
Yeah.
adult, how in a church setting.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate that we are at a church that has a very amazing special needs ministry, and they have been really good about helping the kids. And I think one of the things they do is they're very patient with the kids. And then with the other kids that are around them, they're just educating. They're helping them say, "Hey, she needs a little more help with this," or she needs. So I think stepping in a kind way
Mhm.
and just helping the kids that are struggling with the other kids. "Hey, he needs a little more quiet," or, this kiddo needs a little more time to work on this, or he needs a little more space. He doesn't understand that, the things that you have are not his. And so we're going to just help him understand that. And I think being empathetic to the kids who are not understanding is
Yes.
really helpful because
Yes.
they don't understand. If they don't grow up in that, environment, or a lot of kids haven't been around kids that have special needs.
Right.
And so I remember we went to a wedding one time, and there was a little girl, and she was in a wheelchair, and she clearly didn't have a lot of words, and she, was just kind of sitting there by herself. And a couple of my kids went over and started talking to her and just saying, "Are you having fun?" And she obviously wasn't answering them, but
Mhm.
she was smiling. You could tell she appreciated it. And I looked over, and her mom was just sobbing. And her
Course.
mom said, "Most people don't ever talk to my daughter because they don't know what
Right.
to say. They don't know
Right.
how to interact with her." And so I think, just helping every kid realize that just talk to these kids, just interact with them. It may be a little bit different, but they want that interaction. They want to have conversations with you, or they want to feel included in everything. And so the more we can just help other kids feel that it's okay to talk to them, even if they're a little different than we are, and just help them to be just that kind. I'm going to come alongside you and meet you where you are, which is hard. It's hard for kids. And so, as the adults, we have to really facilitate that. In when we see the struggles, we can't just say, "Hey, don't be mean to them."
Right.
That's not nice. We have
Right.
to facilitate. What do we do? How do
Mhm.
we interact with them?
Mhm. Coach. We need to coach.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I've talked to Ryan about this, and you can talk about this as much as you want to, or as little as you want to. But I know that you
Yeah.
guys went through a really hard season with your son.
Yeah.
And what did that look like to you, and what helped you moving forward? Because as we talk about, you just said some kids aren't around kids with differences, so they don't know how to interact.
Yeah.
I think some
Yeah.
adults haven't been around other parents that are going through really, really hard seasons. So
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you, like what that looked like for you and what help and
Yeah.
support looked like.
Yeah, so we did. We went through a really hard season with one of our boys. It was tricky because on the outside, both of our boys on the outside look neurotypical, and they can hold great conversations with people. It's not obvious right away that there are challenges for them. And as their parents, it's not like we're going around going, "Hey, this kid struggles. They lie about everything all the
Right.
time."
Right.
I'm not gonna go around announcing that to people. I let
Right.
people kind of figure it out for themselves that I have one that struggles with just embellishing stories and making himself the hero of every situation and adding details that aren't there and aren't true. And so what was really hard during this really hard season that we went through was that there were a lot of people that hadn't figured that out yet. And
Mm.
so they really thought that we were these terrible people. And the support that we got was I could tell people were struggling to know what to believe, what was true, what
Mhm.
was not true. The people that knew us really well knew who this kid was and what struggles that he had. And so they were really, super supportive in coming alongside of us. But it was hard because it did feel very isolating. It felt like a little bit like I felt like I was going crazy some days because I would
Sure.
hear these stories that were being told
Sure.
and they weren't true, but I felt like I was crazy, or like trying to explain to somebody, "Well, actually that didn't happen," or "Actually that's not true," or "Actually." And so it just felt it was a really hard season. It's hard to describe it, but having people that were willing to either just listen to me as I kind of like unloaded like all the hard that we were going through, or people that were just willing to come alongside us and say, "Hey, I brought you dinner tonight because I know this is a really tough season, and so I just thought dinner might be helpful to you," or I'm going to pick up your other kids from school and bring them home for you because I know, just having a little extra time might be helpful right now. So there's not a lot. I mean, unless you've gone through the exact situation that we had, most people can't really understand it.
Mhm.
And I found more and more people that are in that boat though that have had a similar situation to us. And so we've been able to talk to people now that we're on the other side of it. We're in a better place. Things are going really well. I've been able to talk to people that are going through it and kind of help them through it. But a lot of people just really didn't know how to help, what to say. And I don't know that I other than just listening and kind of making me helping me recognize, like, "You're not crazy. This is really hard," you know? I
Mhm.
had a counselor at the time, and she was like, "This is crazy-making behavior." Like, it's okay that you feel a little crazy because these behaviors are crazy-making. Like, you're not crazy, but I understand why you feel that way, and that so much was like, "Okay, thank you." I just felt seen in that moment that she realized that that was what I was feeling, and so
Mm.
but I think a lot of people are not equipped to or don't know how to help somebody in that situation, and really, I just wanted people to listen and be like, "This is really
Mhm.
hard," and empathize, you know?
So, Kayla, I think what we learned from that is we only know a part of the story.
Yep.
And I know I experienced that with one of my kids. We only know part of the story, and so the best thing to do is just listen and drop off meals and organize some carpools.
Yep.
So, as we look at the church, when your family walks into a church, especially with you as kids with so many different needs,
Yep.
what helps you feel at ease right away? And where have you thought, like, oh, they get it? And on the flip side, where have you felt like, oh, we don't really fit, even if people in the church meant well?
I think, what helps us feel at ease is when people just immediately are able to greet our kids wherever they are, whatever they're doing, however they are, and you don't get that, like, judgmental look of like, "Oh, your kid is flailing on the ground over there, and they shouldn't be," "They're coming into church. Why is your kid acting like that?" When we don't get that, when we get the, "Oh, he's having a really hard morning, isn't he?" And that kind of, like, just
Mhm.
empathetic, like, recognition of we have a lot of people, especially when our kids were little. At one point, we had 6 kids that were 9 and under, and, I
Wow.
mean, we were a hot mess sometimes when we walked into the church. Like, we were doing really well just to be there, and so just having that, like, "Hey, can I help you? Can I walk you to class? Can I take this kid with me? Or can I," just having that open arms of like, "Let me lighten your burden as you walk in the door." It
Mhm.
might be the only time that my burden gets lightened,
Right.
in that whole day
Right.
is when somebody comes over and grabs a diaper bag or carries a kid or, holds a hand or whatever. So just that really that welcoming, that can make or break whether or not we're coming back,
Sure.
if we have that. I think, what we've had in that's been a little bit of a challenge is probably when we've been at churches where they said, "I'm sorry, we just don't have anything for your kid. You're just gonna have we have a cry room. You can sit in there with them," and I'm thinking, this is the 1 hour that I get to like just worship and not think about what's going on. I need somebody to take my kid from me. I need somebody who can understand them. And so to be told, "I'm sorry, we just can't handle their needs. Like, we just can't." Okay, well, okay, if you can't handle their needs, then do something about it, right? Like, if you have families coming into your church and you can't handle the needs of the kids, then you should be actively searching out, how do we meet the needs of these kids? We do a children's ministry training for families, I mean, for churches. And the whole reason we do it is because the church we were at didn't know how to handle our kids and didn't know
Mhm.
how to, we were leading a support group. And in that support group, we noticed that parents weren't able to come back because the church was just like constantly they were sending a message like, "Hey, come pick up your kid," or, "Hey, we can't, we need you to take them. We can't handle them." And so we realized very quickly that they didn't understand some very basic principles that could help them be able to handle, because it's not rocket science understanding trauma or understanding, kids that are neurodivergent. It's just a matter of being willing and being open-handed to say, I know a lot about kids, but I may not know about these kids. And somebody who's been there or somebody who knows more can, if you can help give me some pointers or some tips. And I think especially in the case of like my daughter who's like a toddler in a teenager body,
Mhm.
lots of people are empathetic to her. It's my kids that
Yeah.
that don't look like they have special needs,
Yep.
that people are just like, "Oh, they're just a bad kid," or, "Oh, they're just, they're defiant. They never listen to what I have to say," and stuff. Those are the kids that need more. I feel like people need more education. Most people are they can walk with my Addie girl, and she's joyful and giggly, and they recognize that, she needs a little accommodations, right? They're not gonna let her loose in the classroom because 'cause she'll eat the crayons and pour glue all over everybody,
Mhm.
like, they
Mhm.
recognize that. We like to refer to it as, like, our kids that are in an emotional wheelchair or that are in
Oh,
a,
that's good.
they you can't see it. If somebody's in a wheelchair, you move the chair out of the way, you open the door, you make all the accommodations.
That's
But for our
good.
kids where you can't see their disability, we tend to just say it's bad behavior, and so I think those are the times when we've had the hardest feeling part of feeling part of the church, or even, like, we had a small group that we were part of, and while we were fostering, and I remember one time where they were like, "Hey, our babysitter really can't handle this one little girl." We had a little girl, she was about 2, and, she was tough, and I get it, she was tough. But
Mhm.
our small group was like, "I mean, can you find your own babysitter?"
Mm.
Or "Here's a pack and play. We set it up so you can just put her to bed when you get to our house," for our small group. It just felt icky.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not willing to do what it takes to help your kid feel like they're a part of our community
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
So,
And I think the key, what you said, it's not that hard. It seems
it's
overwhelming in the
not.
minute. So would you say, Kayla, instead of saying, because I hear a lot of people where they're met with, we're just not equipped.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of saying that, say, can we talk more
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
find out more what the needs are and then go get help from people like you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, because if you're it's one thing to say, "Hey, we're not equipped, but we're willing to learn. We want to be equipped. We
Yeah.
want to be able to keep this child safe or keep this child in the classroom. We just don't have what it takes, and so show me where to go, show me what to look at, show
Yeah.
me, give me a resource, because, yeah, if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach you. I'm willing to share with you resources, and I think every parent of a neurodivergent kid is willing to help you because they've done the work already. They're like, "Please, just let me show you what's worked, what's helped." We know our kids the very best. We know them better than anybody else, and so I think
Yeah.
that would frustrate me when people would be like, "Oh, well, they didn't seem to do, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh, well, let me tell you, this works better if you do it this way." And they would almost like in a classroom tell me about my kid like I didn't know my kid, and that would really frustrate me. So when I'm able to say, "Hey, listen, I'm the expert on my kid, and I'll share all the resources that I have and all the things that have helped us be successful in parenting this child and helping this child feel safe and included and all those things."
That's great. So maybe I don't feel ready right now, but I want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Open-handedness and willing to learn is way better than, "Sorry, we don't have anything for your child." You know?
Right. 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 Well, Kayla, I could spend hours with you, but we're gonna wrap up, and
Yeah.
we like to wrap up with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And adoptive and foster parents are the best at this. So, Kayla, you live in Texas. What's your
Yes.
favorite thing about living in Texas?
That I don't have crazy amounts of snow in the winter.
Yes, that's what's your least favorite thing about living in Texas?
That it's 1,000,000 degrees in the summer.
Yes, I've been there in summer. It's very
Oh,
hot.
so
Uh,
hot.
what is a memorable gift from your childhood?
That is a good question. I got a set of bunk beds when I think I was 13, and I thought they were, like, the coolest thing in the whole world. And I just thought that was like the greatest gift. And then what was even cooler is that my boys had it in their room for the longest time. My parents kept it. It was like a
Your
really,
bunk bed.
yeah. So they had it in their room for the longest time. We ended up having to get rid of them a couple years ago, but it was so kind of fun to be able to pass along one of my favorite things to some of my kids.
That is super great.
Yeah.
What's your favorite family tradition at the North
Oh,
household?
gosh. I love when we have game nights. We love to play card
Mhm.
games, and so we try and do the last weekend of every month as family fun weekend. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes it means we go somewhere, we go out to eat, or we go to a, concert or a amusement park or something like that. But a lot of times it just means that we order pizza and wings and we play games. We love to play games that make us laugh. So that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah. Game night. Very fun.
Mhm.
Okay, this is the last one. Finish this thought. Every child,
Has potential.
yes, they do.
Mhm.
And sometimes we're the ones that have to help them uncover it so they can
Yeah.
reach their potential. Kayla, as we finish up, as people are listening to you, how do they get in touch with you
Yeah.
and
Well, if
learn
you
more
have
about the work you do?
Yeah, so you can visit our website. It's www.onebighappyhome.com. We've got lots of stuff on there, or follow us on social media. We're at One Big Happy Home everywhere. So that's an easy
Yep.
place to find us. If they have a specific question for me, they can email me, Kayla, Kayla, at onebighappyhome.com. And I'd be glad to follow up with them. So, yeah.
I would love to hear last encouragement to someone who has a child that they feel doesn't have a place where they belong. What's your
Mm.
encouragement to that parent?
My encouragement would be just to figure out what it is that they love and what it is that makes them just light up, whatever that is, and just go forward with that. And they will find their people there.
Mhm.
We have one
Mhm.
daughter who struggles to fit in a lot of places. But when she goes to theater, oh my gosh, she finds her people
Mm.
because that is the place where she feels
Mhm.
like she belongs the most. And so I never would have guessed it. I don't come with a theater background. It's not something that I grew up doing or had any experience with. But we tried it and she just thrives there and she just loves it. And so I think finding something they love, that's where they're going to find their people because people will walk alongside them
Yes.
in that.
So encourage their interests.
Yeah, for sure.
Kayla, thank you so much for joining us. I loved our conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I had lots of fun.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Every Child Belongs. If you found today's episode helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to share this with a friend who might need to hear it. Together, we can create a world where every child belongs.